We are live, but I think we've lost James.
Can we adjourn again?
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Lost you. Oh, that's it.
No, I'm here.
You're
Yep.
live, James.
No, I thought we had to turn off camera and mic while you went live. So we're live, are we? Okay.
Yes, we are.
Well, good evening and welcome to the Town Council's Policy and Finance Committee meeting. This meeting will be held under the regulations allowing local authorities to meet formally using remote technology. It's being streamed live and is available to view on our website. It's important for everybody participating in this meeting to keep your mics on mute when you're not speaking to reduce disruption from background noise. Most decisions will be made by the general assent of those present. However, if a vote is required, each councillor's name will be read out by me or the town clerk, and you will be asked to state whether you are for, against or abstain. If at any time the town council's technology fails and we need to adjourn the meeting for a short period, I will confirm this and ask all those present to turn their cameras off and mute their microphones while the problem is rectified. I will then confirm when the meeting resumes. We can only monitor our technology and cannot halt the meeting if a member of the press or public experiences technology issues. I'll now ask the town clerk to carry out a roll call of all councillors and ask you to confirm that you are present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
Present.
Councillor Chase.
Present. And could someone let Councillor Price in to observe, please?
So Councillor Long.
Yes, present.
Councillor Tandy.
Present.
Councillor Rhodes. Not with us yet. Councillor Dr. Walsh.
Present.
And Councillor Malloy.
Present.
Thank you. So if we can move on to the agenda. Item 1 is mobile phones. Members are asked to switch their phones to silent for the duration of the meeting, please. Apologies. I'll ask the town clerk to confirm those who've sent apologies. I don't believe we've got any.
We have Councillor North East, Chair, for whom Councillor Tandy is substituting.
Yes, of course. Welcome, Councillor Freddie Tandy. So we move on to items of declarations of interest. In addition to the standing interest, which are recorded under item 3 on your papers, is there anybody else who wishes to make a declaration? No? In that case, we'll move on to item 4, which is the minutes. And if you turn to pages 4 to 7 in your agenda, you'll find the meeting minutes from the 26th of October 2020. And if everyone is happy with that, they will approve them and arrangements for them to be signed later. Can we ask for a general assent on that? Is anybody unhappy with the meetings? Please indicate.
No, happy to agree them.
Happy with them.
Thank you. Welcome, Councillor Rhodes. Glad to see you with us. You weren't with us a few seconds ago, so it's good to see you here. That's great. That's all right, no problem. So we're moving on to item 5, which is Chair's report and urgent items. And I will ask the town clerk to report if there are any urgent items, because I believe there is one.
There is one, Chair, and I know that you'll want to declare an interest on it, but this is because we've had a request from the Harbour Board seeking the nomination of a representative from the Town Council to join their newly formed advisory board. Now, discussing this earlier with the Chair, we think rather than make a recommendation from this committee, what if members are happy, what we will do is write to all members asking whether they'd like to sit on it and bring the matter back to Council in January. Are members happy with that way forward?
I will declare my interest as a member of Littlehampton Harbour Board.
Okay.
It's a personal interest. Sorry, I should say that.
May I just ask a question?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jill.
Thank you. It was just to ask, when you email out to us, whether there is any additional information available in terms of what that group will be doing, what its function and role is.
I will try and supply you with as much information as I can.
Thank you.
Yeah, there is an email about it, which I have seen, and that would make sense to put round to everybody. The important thing to stress, it is not to become a member of the board. It's an advisory committee or board which they are setting up, which is supposed to be representative of different stakeholders in and around the town. Okay, is everybody happy with that way forward, that we should write to all members of the town council asking if there's only one place offered to the town council, so it is for one person.
Yeah.
Happy with that?
Great, thank you. We then move on to item 6, which is the public forum, and I believe we have 2 questions. And in accordance with the remote meetings protocol, any members of the public wishing to address the council or any of its committees during remote meetings should have emailed their submission to us one clear day before the meeting, and I will just check with the town clerk that there are any of the 2.
There are, Chair.
So shall I read them out and then give the response?
Yes, please.
From Debbie Knight. I'm writing to express my opinion on the meeting regarding the £90,000 proposed to spend. Can this not be spent wisely on more police patrol or with a security company that have the authority to cuff shoplifters like in some other towns? My understanding is that the community wardens have no authority to even make a typeless dismount. I've seen myself the abuse these wardens take from some of Littlehampton's scumbags, her words, not mine, regarding the no alcohol zones. Is this really fair on either the wardens who are only doing their job or the citizens wanting to feel safe? I feel that as resident of the town for 52 years, I have the right to my opinion and to be listened to. Well, we thank Mrs. Knight for her for bringing her views before us, and I'm sure that members of the committee will consider these when discussing the scheme later on this evening. As a point of clarification, the community wardens are not the existing business wardens who are provided through a partnership of the Co-op and Sussex Police. These are new posts whose role will be to work with the community across the whole of Littlehampton, not just the town centre, to address antisocial behaviour and criminality wherever it is identified by people and organisations across the town. The issues that you raise will be some of the immediate priorities for the wardens. And then we have a second question from Mr. Mackenzie, which I will now read out. We have received comments from Mr. Mackenzie, which in view of their length have been summarised in places. In doing so, I note that the full text has been sent to all members of the committee. I write to express my support for the Community Wardens Initiative, which is being discussed at the Policy and Finance Committee. It is a great pity that one of my ward councillors, Councillor Malloy, is actively opposing this on Facebook already and stating that the people she has spoken to say it is not working. I would be interested to know from Councillor Malloy how many people Councillor Malloy has spoken to and how people have determined it isn't working and on what basis they are measuring this. I think that this is a super initiative which is certainly worth trying to see whether it can have an impact on the current dire situation in and around the town. As a resident of Queen Street, I would love to see something effective to try and tackle the behaviours and problems in the town, and I urge you all to support this initiative. I believe the success of this will hang off a few things, one of which will be that the town council will need to manage this well. Please ensure that the staff appointed to the roles have the skills and experience needed and that their management is proactive. They themselves will need to be robust and proactive. I also think it critical to consider how progress and success or failure is going to be measured. Mr. Mackenzie goes on to ask a range of important related questions that I will answer in an email following the meeting. He ends by saying, please support this expenditure. And my response is, we thank Mr. Mackenzie for his comments, which I'm sure members will bear in mind when the matter is considered. The concerns that Mr. Mackenzie raises are the very reason why the scheme is being recommended for trialling. The breadth of coverage will allow focus to be directed at many parts of the town where there are issues of concern. Queen Street is a good example of this, and we are hopeful that by listening to all of the communities across the town, positive results will be achieved. Properly skilled staff able to interact with a wide range of agencies, community groups and individuals will be vital, together with clear direction. As stated earlier, I will respond on Mr. Mackenzie's other points of detail separately in an email following the meeting. Thank you very much for that.
Chair, could I just add that Mr. Mackenzie has circulated a further email to members, which I will also respond to.
Thank you very much indeed for that draft, Peter. Thank you. We then move on to item 7, which is officers' reports, and I'm asking you to turn to page 8, and I'll hand over to the town clerk to take us through these reports. The first of which is 7.1 Town Centre events.
Thank you, Chair. Can I deal with this in 3 parts?
Yep.
The first part is dealing with what's been done and what's happened, which provides some of the answers to the questions that came up at the last meeting of council about 3D art. Also updates on the draws that have been happening over the months and have come to an end this month. I think this week with the draw. I think the mayor's doing it possibly tomorrow. So that's the first phase. The second phase then is perhaps the more complicated, and in terms of this meeting, there are 3 elements that the committee will need to discuss and decide a way forward. They relate, and I've covered it in the report, to the art walls and to the augmented reality app. Now, I've picking up from some of the comments that came out of council. I think the first question, and we don't need to discuss those any further, is if members don't want to proceed with them at this stage, then they need to be put on the shelf. So there is then a discussion. Should members want to proceed with them, then we could discuss how that goes ahead. But I think we could spend a lot of time having a discussion, Chair, about something that actually doesn't progress us anywhere. So if it was okay with you, Chair, could I stop there? Because I want to get onto the love local arts and stuff and to the big picture. But I'd be happy to answer questions on those and perhaps gauge members' feelings as to whether they want to shelve those 2 projects for the moment or not.
Right, so I'll take a pause there then, and I can see that I've got Councillor Freddie Tandy wishes to speak. So, Freddie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just clarifying because I think I lost the town clerk briefly. Did he mention the app? This is what?
No, we're not onto that yet.
I got lost. I'm sorry. I think I lost my connection.
Oh,
So I
fine.
kind of got half of it, and not.
Can I ask the town clerk to repeat what we're going to do first?
So there's 2 where we've got to. I was going to stop and then carry on, Councillor Tandy. So the first bit was reviewing the 2 bits that have happened already. Have I still got Councillor Tandy? He's still there, Councillor.
I'm here, and it's just fine. Thank you.
That's okay. So it's to review the 2 things that have happened, and at this stage, just to consider whether you actually wish to proceed with the augmented reality app or the art walls, or whether at this stage you want to shelve them before going on any further on the report.
Perfect. In which case, this is the right moment. So I just wanted to pick up a couple of things, having looked at the papers on page 10, 3.4.1. I mean, on the issue of wall murals, I have no real issue with them. If the wall is available and someone is willing to paint it to spruce it up, excellent. Just as there is a line that says a town map for the former Waitrose building has been suggested. Just make sure we don't progress that any further on account it's about to be turned into flats.
Yep.
On the augmented reality app, this is where I have reservations of significant proportions. On account, I'm struggling, and I've listened, we've had various debates about this. I'm still struggling to see what the purpose of it is and what we are hoping to achieve. There's potential there, but I think if the question is, are we going to go straight forward with it now or pause it? I would personally be in favour of pausing it, just because I think we've got lots of things going on. I think this would probably be a step too far, and if we do it, we need to be clear on what what's going to be augmented in it, and whether it's to attract tourists or whether it's to do something else about footfall. I just at this point don't think we're in a position to take it forward, because I think it needs more clarity. Thank you, Chair.
I totally agree with you, Councillor Tandy. I think that's the right course of action, and there seems to be a general view across the council that both the street art and the wall, the wall murals and the app, the wall murals and the app should be postponed at this point, deferred at this point. In other words, not to take a decision, not to discuss it tonight, but to defer it to a later time. Is there anybody of a different view to that? Otherwise, can I propose that we therefore defer further consideration of the wall murals and the augmented reality app to a later date? Is anybody opposed to that? If they could raise their hands to the screen so that Peter, Town Clerk, can see it.
I won't be able to see it, so if they could shout, it would be better.
All right, if anybody wishes to oppose that, could raise their voice. Jill Long, Councillor Long.
No, I was actually going to express my support for that proposal, that we defer it for now. Thank you.
Anybody not with that proposal? No, I hear no opposition to that. So those two proposals are withdrawn and deferred to a future discussion. So the wall murals and the augmented app. So I'll hand back to the Town Clerk to take us through the rest of the agenda on this item.
We've challenged the rest of the agenda in one go, Chair. The Love Local Arts is an exciting process, and actually we're hopeful that obviously vaccines and things will mean that we're back to doing events, which is really what the money was there for in the first place. Love Local Arts is the idea of, and I'm going to summarise it very briefly here rather than doing it anyway, is to hold a Dragon's Den type opportunity for local arts performers to bring their talents before a panel, to seek money in doing so, to perform, allowing the panel to come up with a programme that can operate throughout many months. What that potentially could do is also link into any thinking that people might have about Pier Road. And so there could be opportunities, if Pier Road progresses, as we think it will, to use some of these people as well, either by doing a morning in the High Street and doing an afternoon at Pier Road during the summer. So the idea is to have a panel in such, or the dragons, if you wish, which would be a councillor from the district and town councils, someone from arts work, and someone from at least one person from the local community, potentially the traders, as they'd be the people that most impacted. The obvious people would be Loca, but it's quite likely that Loca would be applying or approaching the dragons as such to go through this process, so we'd leave that slightly open. The important thing here is that by delegating this out to these various people, the council does need to be supportive of it. And I raise that knowing that I might get my head chopped off, but what that panel may come up with, a fine collection of ukulele players, may not tickle everybody's or float everyone's boat. So, however, it should be seen as part of an overall package. So that I just wanted to explain that. Lastly, the last thing on there is the fact that we will be trying to connect to some major experience, and I'm using experience in its widest sense, to link with the public realm, which will obviously come back before members in due course. So I'm happy to answer any questions on that, or seek clarify, or take on board any comments.
Right. So what the Town Clerk is proposing is broadly what's in the paper at 362 on page 11. That if we wish to progress this, which I'm sure we do, that we need to have the principle of selecting a panel to include a councillor representing at least Arran District and another one for Littlehampton Town Council, a representative from Arts Work, an officer, and somebody from an outside body such as the Traders Partnership. That could be expanded, of course, but as a core membership, that's what we're looking for a steer on. So I hope that members will broadly support that approach. So if anybody wishes to speak on that, please could they indicate on the chat box. If not, is there general support for that?
Supporting.
Sorry, James, I couldn't get me fingers working. Well, the keypad wasn't.
Do you want to speak, David?
Yeah, sorry, James, I couldn't get the keypad working.
That's all right. Please chip in then, Councillor David Chase, Mr. Mayor.
I don't know whether it would be sort of just a rewording, but the district council representative, I would ask that to be a district councillor that lives in Littlehampton.
I think that's mandatory. I agree.
Well, just double checking, James.
Yep.
Well, I'm quite happy to insert that word, a Littlehampton, Arran district councillor. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm speaking as a town councillor. I can't tell what. Anyway, yeah. Stress that. Very happy to accept that. Anybody else wishes to comment on this? I don't. Oh, Jill Long, Councillor Long. Yep,
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask very quickly. I mean, I support the proposal. I think it's a really good idea that it'll encourage people to put themselves forward. Can I just be clear? Is this just for acts or whatever performance for the high street or other locations around the town? I'm thinking maybe if Pier Road, dare one say it is pedestrianised again, it would be so lovely to have some, you know, some musicians there, singers, whatever, to just help the ambience, as it were, of the seafront, and almost a continental approach to that sort of eating and so on. Thank you.
I'm with you 100% there. Absolutely. I think that's what's meant, isn't it, Peter?
It is exactly. The only thing that's not meant is that this funding probably wouldn't be for it. But we've spoken in different. There are other ways that it could be funded. So we could potentially get more money out of. More out of it by having person X performing, as I said earlier, perhaps in the morning or at peak time, or coming down for the weekend, and drifting. Because the morning in the high street on a Saturday morning, for instance, is quite important. The afternoon might be far better spent in Pier Road, as an example. So, so very much so, Councillor Long.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. I've now got Councillor Freddie Tandy, please.
Thank you, Chair. And I think I may have answered my own question by rereading it, but I will just clarify with the town clerk. It says National Youth Arts Charity Artwork, which is great. And then a couple of lines down, it says the programme would support high quality, family friendly pop-up cultural events. Without trying to open a whole can of worms of what defines family friendly cultural events. Now, I'm not suggesting anything completely out there, but is that what the panel would be there to decide? So is the proposal that anyone can apply, they go to the panel decide, rather than there being a set criteria? Thank you. That's great. Thank you, Chair.
Super. Glad we've cleared that one up.
Sorry, through you, Chair. Let's clarify. We'd be trying to look for innovation and people coming up with exciting and different things, rather than having the criteria so tight that you ended up with just a load of balloon magicians or something like that. So, so innovation, I think, will have to be written in there, and that, I suppose, comes with an element of risk, but it also comes with an element of great publicity and so on. So, but the panel will need to balance those things, I think. The key bit will be family, local. For keywords I'd be pinging out would be family, local, and probably entertainment would be quite important. And
probably variety.
Yeah. As I say, 15 balloon magicians really might not wet the palate.
Please the young kids, but it may not please everybody. Yeah. Okay, I don't think I've got anybody else on this one. So
Sorry,
is
I've
there
got another question, Chair. Sorry, I've left it to at that point. The other question is who the town councillor that might be that would represent us on there, because I'd quite like to be discussing at a fairly early stage as we start to move this forward to involve them in it. I have an idea, but members could go whichever way they wish. The idea is that probably the best placed person would be the chair of the Community Resources Committee, both because of the committee nature itself, but also because of some particular expertise that he would be able to bring to the party. But that's up to members to make a call. But I think there is a logic in going down that way.
I didn't know you were going to suggest a name tonight. That seems to me a very sensible suggestion, given that Billy Blanchard Cooper has a breadth of experience across the town in entertainment, both indoors and outdoors, and has a lot of contacts in the town and elsewhere that could help lever in such events. Would there be general support for putting Chairman of CRC forward as that person?
Am I allowed to speak first, James? Is it me?
I think since you're the person we're talking about, yes.
Right. Oh, come on. Okay, thank you, James, and thank you, Peter. Yes, I would be. I think we need to leave out that it's chair of CRC, because it could be, I'm not being funny, in May, it could be that it's a different chair of CRC.
Yeah.
So I think it needs to be councillor based rather than, and again, it may change. I am just concerned that we're making this decision on that person without the other councillors that aren't present here being able to say.
Could I qualify that then? Could I suggest that this committee recommends to council that appointment be made, just to qualify that? I think you're right, Councillor Blanchard Cooper. I think that by doing that, it does bring it to the whole council's attention. Yeah,
I would just feel more comfortable that everyone was given a opportunity to express interest, etc. I've just felt it'd be a bit unfair first, and also it just gives me a chance just to have a little think on that as well. So, because obviously various different ties and whatnot. I'd also just want to clarify if I would have any interest that would make that difficult, in as much as obviously you've mentioned Stacey and Loka. I have just knocked my glasses off. I have a friendship with Stacey and David of Loka and other members, which I think probably most councillors on this council probably have as well. But likewise with other different artists, etc. within the area. So I'm just wanting to, I'd want to spend a little bit of time with you, Peter, and just talk over sort of the detail of that side of things.
I think that's all fair, Chair. And I think that's really good and a really open way to do it. I do think that it's great to have a recommendation going forward, though, because otherwise we'll end up in the same boat at council if we're not careful. So I think it's good to have the recommendation, even if you want to withdraw from it when you think about it later.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And is that the mayor wanting to come back?
Yeah, sorry, James. Yeah, I totally agree with the fact that with Peter, a recommendation from for Councillor Blanchard Cooper with all his experience, etc. But that's where I hope that part would have come from Arran District Council with that hat on, as there are fewer district councillors Arran in Littlehampton. You're going to be cutting down your choice of councillors at Arran.
Well, there are still, what, 10 from Littlehampton at Arran, something like that. Anyway, we're making a recommendation rather than a decision. It's a recommendation to full council, which gives time for all that to be looked at. So that would leave that without making any decision until it actually goes to full council. Is the committee happy to accept the suggestions then in paragraph 362 coupled with the recommendation that Councillor Billy Blanchard-Cooper should be this council's representative to the full council. Is anybody against that proposition?
I was just going to say I would be happy to support that. That it's the current chair of CRC, i.e. Billy, that is put forward, but it's for him to decide ultimately.
Well, he's not accepted it yet, so it gives us a breathing space until the next full council meeting, is what we're saying.
Yep.
And it also gives Aaron some time to think about it as well. Are we going to accept that by general assent then? Anybody against that? I hear nobody saying against, so I think that's agreed by general assent. Is there anything else on this one then, Peter?
No, that's that done, Chair.
We've deferred 2 and 3, we've agreed 4, and otherwise we're asked to note the report. Thank you. We then move on to, I look at my script, Littlehampton Community Wardens.
First of all, it's the public realm, Chair.
Oh yes, sorry, there's an oral report, getting my papers. Yep, it's the town clerk to give an oral report on the public realm.
It's to really repeat what you said at the earlier extraordinary council meeting, Chair, which is that there is a contractor that's been chosen. We are going through due process at the moment, whereby that can't be announced until the contractors who didn't get the contract, so the tenderers who didn't get the contract, had an opportunity to say whether they think there has been foul play or anything like that. The expectation is at the end of the week, hopefully that period will have passed and a contractor will be announced. As soon as we get it, we'll circulate it to members.
Thank you very much. Any questions on that from any colleagues? If you want to shout out rather than type in, I'm happy with that, obviously. Nobody wishing to, can we just note that then, please? Thank you. We then do move on to item 7.3, which is community wardens on pages 13 to 15. And I'm going to ask the town clerk to present the briefing note and then hand back to me for taking questions. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. The members will recall at it's about this time last year that one of the centrepieces of the budget was the community warden scheme, the proposed community warden scheme. And this is now come, I've reported as through the year that we were looking to roll this out early in the new year into this part, and then it would roll on from there. Because so much time had passed since then, I thought it would be a helpful thing to do would be to send a sort of briefing note out to both the Littlehampton Town councillors and to the Littlehampton district councillors, just so that, you know, if members of the public asked them what it was about, they would be in position to do so. What I didn't expect was that by doing so, I was going to set a hair running. However, this is purely an information item, which I'm happy to answer questions about, because it's obviously one of the key priorities of the council and one of our key budget commitments of the year. So if members have any questions, I mean, the only other thing I wanted to say was that this is not about the high street. It's about the high street and every other part of Littlehampton. And it's about having some skilled people in place that can have an effective dialogue with community groups, with local councillors. One of the gaps in that was identified early on by several members is that no one talks to them. They do know what's going on in their patch, in their ward, what's going on in their parks, what's going on in their pubs or whatever. Having that interface, having that link, these people can have as much power delegated to them by the police as any other body or person, or as little. The power of arrest won't be with them. It wouldn't be with anybody else. I don't think it's with the PCSOs. But what these posts that will have is the support of the police. The police are very enthused. The police, through the Safer Aaron Partnership, are putting money into this. They wouldn't be putting money into security guards wandering around the high street, but they are putting money into this. And the expectation is this is a pilot scheme. The last thing I'll say on this, it's important to notice the pilot scheme. If it's successful, which I expect it to be, it's unsustainable as this. What we would hope to be able to do is to turn around to say to other parishes and demonstrate to other parishes, especially larger neighbouring ones, look how good this scheme is. Do you want to participate? If we don't get buy-in at that point, then this is not financially viable. But as a whole town scheme, unless, of course, it is so popular that you're getting pressure from the community and you decide that you want to spend money on it. But as a trial scheme, it is a vitally important step forward because it ticks boxes the wrong way. It goes a long way to achieving what it is that you said that you wanted to do in your priorities. So I'm happy to answer any questions on the scheme that members have. And yeah, that's it, Chair.
Thank you very much, Peter. And I would just emphasise two things. One, this is not a decision paper. The decision was taken way back in June. If you look at page 14, where the project target timescales are there, and that we're halfway through that already. So this is an update for noting. And secondly, we've now heard that Sussex Police are going to be introducing a total of 6 PCSOs, Police Community Support Officers, into the Littlehampton Town Council area. So we're getting a considerable upping of police presence, and with the community wardens, a very considerable town centre and whole town coverage, which is what residents have been saying. If you look at the spate of broken car mirrors, windscreens, tyre slashing, all sorts of other really antisocial and vandalistic behaviour across the town, that's what residents are wanting to be cracked down on, and this is what this goes some way towards helping to fill that gap. So now let's see where we are. I've got, I think, Councillor Billy Blanchard Cooper first, yes?
Thank you, James. Thank you, Peter, for summing up this report brilliantly. It has been agreed, it's in front of us, and I think it's a very positive step forward. There is the old thing of, if you keep doing the same thing time and time again and expect change, it's not going to happen. This is different to what we've done previously. I think it's important to recognise this isn't what we've done in the past. Yes, there are other ways it could be done, but we've found one way that we're going with, and that's how we're proceeding forward, and it is a trial.
Yeah.
What I would just say with the report, it's only a couple of small faults on this. One, I'd like to see, and it might be in there somewhere and I've not spotted it, but sort of either I'd prefer quarterly, but if not, I'd accept bi-monthly reports to town council from them, just for some sort of highlights, what has been achieved. I wouldn't want us to have a similar debate to what we've just had on another role, full council. I think to have them with a clear presence is really important, and it's something I touched on briefly with Peter outside of this meeting. Uniform, I think, would actually be really key to have something that includes each of the participants who's putting money in logos on. It's recognisable, particularly our town council one. I think that needs to be big and prominent. It is our way forward, but with that, it's a recognised part of Littlehampton. It's not just going to be a couple of people that people don't see as being ours. If we could include that somehow into their uniform, I'll be really pleased about that, because it's a bit like the I'm trying to think what they're called from the church. Peter, would you remember? Chaplains.
Yeah.
The chaplains.
3 chaplains.
Yeah, the chaplains who go around in the town centre, because they are so recognised now. It's building on that whole familiarity. And the only thing I have got a question on, particular question, is it is a trial. If we don't continue at the end, is there any cost in reference to like redundancy? I don't think there would be. You're shaking your head. That's fine. That has answered my question. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Billy. I've now got Councillor Michelle Malloy.
Hello. I have quite a few questions on this, mainly because I believe myself and a few other councillors didn't actually know that we'd got this far down the line with it and the amount of money that was being spent. Obviously, we've had feedback that it works well in other towns, but we haven't actually seen as a full council or been sent out as councillors that this has worked somewhere else and seen how it's worked. And I really do agree that we do need more people making our high streets and our other streets feel safer. My biggest concern is it says in here that these community wardens are going to be able to enforce the PSPO, and we haven't actually been told how they're able to enforce this. We have had, and this is where a lot of the confusion comes from, in the last year during the COVID, we have had someone wearing it's either a community support officer or community warden jacket on the high street. I don't believe this person has had any authority to enforce the most basic of rules, because even myself, when I've been in the high street, we've seen cyclists go past and they said, oh, I can't ask them to get off. And I think this is where the biggest worry is coming from. We've had someone wearing this jacket with a name on, and now we're being told we're getting more of these people, and we are really worried that they're not going to be able to enforce what we need enforced. We need more robust policing on our streets, really.
I'll ask Peter to come in at the end of all the contributions.
Okay.
Thank you.
If that's okay, then I've also spoken to the coordinator for the Shopwatch radios in the disc scheme, and he's had no interaction or been asked for any feedback on this. And I know this isn't just a high street project, but actually a good majority of our antisocial behaviour is based around the town centre. So I just wonder where we're getting our information on how this is going to work if we're not speaking to the people who already try to police the high street as best they can.
Okay, I'll pick that up.
Okay, and I think that would cover it for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. That's lovely. We've got the Mayor, Councillor David Chase, please.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, I'm sure I'm going to be corrected on this, but never mind. I do agree with everything Councillor Malloy has said. But yes, I was fully aware all the time of how much money this was going to cost, and yeah, I do agree with that. But it is a wise thing to do. But what I think I've missed is where it came into these are going to be Arran District Council employees, and yet again Arran District Council managing them. Again, with having no say, no control, and the old saying goes, it's always wrong to presume, but I'm afraid I did presume we'd be employing a private company to do this, not our own staff, or employing new staff.
Thank you, David. I'll ask Peter to come in at the end, and I finally, I think, got Councillor Peddy Tandy, please.
Thank you, Chair. If you forgive me, I've got two things. One is a direct request by Councillor North East, who I'm obviously subbing for, just to put his views on the record. And I appreciate, I think he prepared this before it was before it was clear that it wasn't a decision. Councillor North East just wanted to put on record that he would prefer us to be using this money to fund PCSOs. But I think obviously what you said at the beginning, Chair, I think probably he hadn't heard that at that time. So that was Councillor North East's view, that he wanted the 90 grand putting into what he called PCSOs and quote, not toothless wardens. So I've done my job of putting his words on the record. From my point of view, could I just clarify, because I think what was said earlier about the fact that they could go around the town and that they have a range of different things, I think is something that perhaps hasn't been absolutely clear. One of the things that I think will make or break this is how well they are received by the public. because particularly if we just stick a high vis on someone, and I think people will naturally just lump them in with the business wardens, which clearly they're not. It goes back to what Councillor Ballinger Cooper says, that the uniform will be important, making sure it's distinctive, but equally from a town council point of view, and probably Aaron as well, is that there is a real opportunity to use things like social media that people are engaging with a lot more now, just to make it clear what these officers, these wardens can do. Because I think a lot of the reason people become cynical about posts like this is because they buy into stereotypes about people just having a high vis and no powers. So could I ask that we have some sort of forward plan as this is rolled out, that we have things like perhaps even like video logs or interviews with some of them, just so that they kind of have a face and people get to know them, because often if people can do that, they're more likely to trust them and kind of buy into the whole project. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Freddie, for that. I haven't got any other speakers, so Peter, do you want to sum up, please?
Well, I'll try and answer a lot of those questions. And I know you covered the PCSO point earlier, but town and parish councils do have the power to pay for PCSOs. However, the Police and Crime Commissioner doesn't want them. So, on that basis, because and in reality, whilst they are a good idea, it would seem so, under the police's employ, it means they can go anywhere. So if there's a shortage, say in Shoreham, off to Shoreham they'd go. So there are significant issues. The other doubt about that, the other problem with it, which is why it wasn't worth fighting the Police and Crime Commissioner about it, is the how should we say, the fact that if we were to pay for one, there is every likelihood that one of the new PCSOs that would be coming our way wouldn't arrive. So because they've determined a level that they need. So just answering that question, the points about the social media, the video logs, and selling it with the public, you're absolutely right. All of those are absolutely paramount. Sorry, they're selling it with the public, selling it with the community organisations, and selling it with councillors. All of those are equally paramount and will actually interact with each other. Using councillors' own Facebooks and things like that is vitally important. Video logs is a really good idea. Progress is another one that we could use to try and introduce, to make sure these faces are known. But the best way they can do it is themselves, is actually to be out there, talking to people, being recognisable, because that's how they're going to glean their information. That's how they're going to find out the really important things, because people will learn to trust them. And actually, if they can deliver the results, then that word will get out that you need to speak to Dave or Davina. Who's often up at the Wick shops or whatever. That will help. So all of those points are fair. How will the bi-monthly report? Yes, I think yes, we want one. Clearly, lessons learned, and I will certainly feed that back to the scheme. The town council logo, ditto. How will they enforce the PSPO? Largely to the same way as a PCSO would. In so much as that you try and work with those people. If they fail, then you've got a hotline to the police, because the police want these people. The police are supportive. The police through the Safer Aaron Partnership are investing in this. It needs to work. We will be on their backs as well if anything's not happening. In terms of direct oversight and why are they being employed by the district council, the question was it was 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, to be quite blunt. Who would be the easiest or the best person to employ? And it wasn't a question of, oh, it's going to be Aaron's or it's going to be the town councils. It was actually who can do it most efficiently and effectively. Aaron have got a much bigger payroll. They have actually got a community safety team, which this person does fit within that, of these people. We haven't got that, so we would be able to have those expertise. Aaron have got better links in that side of things with the police structurally. So all of those things work, and they've also got Safer Aaron Partnership. So that's the reason why it's with Aaron, but it could just as easily have been with the town council. There was no, if we're going to have these posts, it has to be with us. It was very much who was the best person to take that forward. The question of Shopwatch and the person being involved, I'm not going to turn around and say that's wholly untrue, because it isn't. Because I've spoken about the community wardens both at meetings where we were talking. We have a local action team on the high street and some of the issues there. So that person has been there when we talked about that. But I've also talked about it at traders partners meetings when the council embarked on this before COVID struck us. And admittedly, some of the traders meetings haven't happened since then. But I spent a lot of time going through the council's budget of last year and how that linked with our policies, going through with the traders then, and with a lot of support, the whole different angles of it, the town centre events, the community wardens, the town centre plan, the public realm, etc., etc. So there's a lot of time has been spent on that. COVID has made things different. I'm not making an excuse, it's a fact of life. The traders meetings haven't happened, the big traders meetings, so just the board meetings have happened. So I just missed anything here. Oh, was it going to be a private contractor? You could go either way, to be honest. If you were looking for more security presence in the high street, you would probably lean towards a security company. If you're trying to get a more friendly, touchy-feely type scenario, then you would probably lean towards people who've got more of a community background, which doesn't tend to be the way that most security firms operate. The model that we're using is not the Chichester one, but the Horsham one. And that has been done that way. My view on it, and my strong explanation as to why I'd supported that, is that it gives control. This is a pilot scheme. We need to be adaptable, flexible. Things might need changing within the first 3 weeks. You put these things on the ground, it might not work perfectly. We need to do that. Much more difficult with a contractor than actually someone yourself. But there are strengths and weaknesses to both, but at no point did we say we were going down that line. This was an either or, and I believe that the two councils will enjoy the benefit of the flexibilities and adaptability that offers. Really looking forward to it. One of the other things I forgot to mention at the beginning, I should have done, is once it's being done in 2 phases. The group, the senior community warden, will be appointed first, and one of the things that is really keen to do is to try and get him into an informal gathering. Now this is going to be difficult with COVID, but one way or another with some of the key players, and those key players will be councillors, local councillors, and if it happens at 1 meeting or 20, we will make that happen, because it's so important that he knows you or she knows you and that you know him or her. And the other ones, and the same with those key community groups. So that's sorry, I should have mentioned that at the beginning, but that interface is an absolute paramount importance on it.
Thank you very much.
Answered all the questions.
You've answered all the questions, but I see Councillor Michelle Malloy has put her hand up again. Very quickly, Michelle, because it's for noting this item.
Sorry, I know it's for noting. So does that mean with the thing of enforcing the PSPO and the authority they have, the only authority they actually have is to a hotline to the police?
No, because the PSPO doesn't work like that. The PSPO works on the fact that there is a PSPO, that they can do certain things within that. That's where we're going to have to train and enforce to, like the PSPOs, but not like the PSCOs, yeah. PCSOs. I'll get my letters in the right order.
Not just for my clarity, I'm sorry, it's for a couple of people. So will these people be able to cuff people? Will they be able to issue fines? Do they have the authority to ask people to hop off their bikes?
Will they be able to cuff people, did you say, and issue fines? Categorically no, because the PCSOs can't. The only people that can do that is I think what was the licensed police officer, for want of a better word.
Warranted police officer.
Warranted. Thank you, Chair.
There are private security firms that can do that as well as civil debt recovery. So I know this is
Michelle, that's quite different. Civil debt recovery is not cuffing people in the high street.
No, I know, but issuing fines on when you catch shoplifters and stuff, they can do that. As you said, this has already been agreed. I didn't realise it had already been agreed. I'm quite disappointed, but I just wanted some clarification of what's been agreed to. That's all. Thank you.
Sorry, just to clarify that, I'm mystified by the statement that they could issue fines to shoplifters. I mean, we wouldn't be looking to. We'd be expecting shoplifters is a criminal offence and to be pursued that way.
A lot of large retail companies now have in-house security guards who, when they catch a shoplifter, they issue a fine, which then gets taken straight to court, and the money received from that fine goes back to either the shop or, in our case, it would be the high street. And it's quite effective, so that's where I got that from.
I'm not sure quite what.
Quite a deterrent, because I know you have your shoplifters who do it because they have reasons they need that money quickly for habits or other things, but some people are new to shoplifting, or they do it because they have a bit of an obsession with it, and it's quite good in stopping them.
Thanks, Michelle, for that. Can I again stress that this is not a decision paper. The decision was taken back in June. If you look on page 14, the project target timetails set it all out there. The jobs are actually being advertised, probably closed now because it's December, and interviews will take place in January. That's where we're at, and they will be starting in March, all things being equal. So this is not a decision paper tonight, it's for noting, and it's a progress paper effectively. So thank you very much, Peter, for that, and thanks for answering the various questions. Can we then move on to item, sorry, just let me call up my paper again. Item 7.4, which is West Sussex Association of Local Councils, an oral update from the Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. I'm in danger here of I'm going to befuddle members with acronyms if I'm not careful. However, I'm going to make an assumption that people remember that at this meeting previously, a decision was made the council has previously made a decision to withdraw from the Sussex Association of Local Councils if the proposals being progressed by the West Sussex Association of Local Councils are not, if come to fruition. Those are basically would appear to be running completely in the face of what the parishes across Sussex, across West Sussex want. Involves spending lots of money and potentially on someone else's agenda, and at the same time could do well. Will wipe out the Sussex Association of Local Councils and potentially leave the members paying some costs along the way with that. Several efforts have been made to try and stop this process, but including there were 2 annual general meetings that were organised, both of which got postponed. I leave it to others to guess why that might have happened, but both of them got postponed. There are moves afoot to hold an extraordinary meeting of, here we go again, the Arran District Association of Local Councils, to instruct the delegates, to consider instructing the delegates to do what the parishes want, not to go down this other route, and to, if they won't, then to appoint other delegates. Those haven't been confirmed yet, but we don't normally attend the Arran District Association, but I hope members would endorse my actions in writing to ADALC and saying we'd like to now receive agenda papers and we will attend. Our representatives would still be the Mayor and Deputy Mayor because we have appointed them previously as our SALC reps. I will keep you informed. I really do apologise. It is just a barrage of acronyms, but it is an important thing for the association, for the local councils across the county.
Thanks, Peter. Are members happy to note that report and the way that's being taken forward? Anybody wish to come in on that?
Happy to support it.
Yes, I'd be happy to support that too. In the absence of any comment from our delegates, I assume they're happy.
I hear nothing to the contrary. Then that's fine. Agreed. Thanks, Peter, for that. You've frozen, Peter, but I'm sure you've heard that.
No, thank you.
Okay, can we then move on to item 7.5, which is the communications report on pages 16 to 21. And again, Peter's going to introduce this.
Yeah, this is from Sophia, and is a really good. I hope the report is a very good summary of where we are, and I hope it's easily readable, and as an annual report that we bring to you. It is for noting. but I'm happy to answer any questions, and if I can't, I'm happy to get answers to you following the meeting.
Thank you very much, Peter. I draw your attention to 3 little 1 little 2, where the page now has a total of nearly 3,000 followers, an increase of 30% since 2019. Interestingly, 70% of the followers are female, which apparently is quite normal in these situations. But any other questions, please? Nope. Are we then happy to note the report?
Quick, I wasn't fast enough.
Yep, quick, lovely. I think that's Jill. Yes, please. To cancel along, Jill.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm never fast enough. I just wondered, looking at 3.3 about the e-progress newsletter, 188 subscribers. Doesn't sound like very many at the moment. Is there anything else we can do to promote it more? I'm sure we're doing everything we can, but I mean, can councillors promote it more?
The answer is yes. It's a steady grower. What we need on there is something that we need to be able to keep going at. It's good-ish, but we need. I think there will become a point of critical mass. But the other factor is there aren't that, despite the fact that we all are great followers of social media and so on, that I'm not, but others are, there is only a certain percentage of the people who seem to actually follow it. But the answer is yes, and I think the point you make, Councillor, is a good one. I think that perhaps by using other people other than our normal routes to advertise it and to link to it is a really good thing, and that would certainly include using the councillors and other players as well. I think it's a good point.
Thank you, Jill, for that. I think it's a very good point, because most of us go on social media from time to time, some on an hourly basis, others on a daily basis, and some on a weekly basis. If all of us could remember to just occasionally put a reminder on our little emails or Facebook interventions, a reference to the e-progress, that would be helpful. Yeah, great, good idea. I think I've got Freddie Tandy. Yes, I have. Councillor Tandy.
Thank you very much, Chair. I warmly welcome the report and commend everything that the communications team have done. I think they've rose to the challenge of COVID really well. Could I ask a question about how and when we keep under review platforms we are present on? I ask simply because, as someone who joined Facebook several years ago, it's certainly amongst, I hesitate to call myself young, but younger members of this community, other social media channels are becoming increasingly prevalent. So certainly amongst my generation, Instagram is a far more go-to tool. And I ask this simply because if we have a presence on Facebook, they are interlinked so that you can dual post. So what you ever post on Facebook goes up on Instagram as well. I'm just wondering, and I appreciate it might involve increased office at a time, or it might change the kind of balance of who does what, but just if that's something we've considered or if we would consider.
Good point. Thanks, Freddie, for that. And
Sorry.
I was going to bring everybody in,
Yep.
Peter, and then ask you to respond. I've got, Billy Blanchard Cooper's disappeared. No, there's nobody else then. So over to you, Peter.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair point, and I certainly, as one of the young people now, having got 3 of my own young people, and who are very much focused on Instagram rather than Facebook or Twitter even. I think that's a fair point. Can I feed that back, and I'll get Sophia to ping a note round in the new year. So you've gone quiet, James.
Yes, please. Absolutely, no problem at all. You heard me all right there?
Yep.
Fine. I've got nobody else on this one, so if we can note that report, please. Thank you. And then we move on to item COVID-19 update, and again it's the town clerk, please.
this is again largely an information item, although it is asking members to endorse what's been going on so far. You'll recall the last one of these that we brought before members, and this is really updating from there. I could go through it, but I suggest members have probably read it, being such a topical subject, and I'm happy to answer questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you for a very comprehensive report, and the appendix as well, with the expenditure broken down there as well. Are there any questions from members to the clerk on any of it? Just to say, I'm sure all of you know already, but Rosemead Park opened sotto voce, low-key on Saturday and is being used enthusiastically. Any questions? I think if I could just make a comment, I've seen the latest figures for up to today for the COVID infections in the Arran district, and they show a quite steep rise along with most other districts in West Sussex. I am never a predictor of anything that might happen, but I think members should be prepared for a possible uplifting of our tier status in West Sussex from tier 2 to tier 3, which may be announced either tomorrow or the next day. I'm not predicting that, I'm just saying that it's my semi-professional reading of the figures that have come out to us today.
And it's being alluded to in on BBC News too.
Oh, was it? I didn't see that, of course. I was at the previous meeting. Yeah. Doesn't surprise me.
No.
So I think the watchword to any members of the public who are watching, and certainly to all of us, is to continue being as safe as we can, with following the initial precautions of as little contact with other people as possible, washing our hands frequently, wearing face masks whenever in a public place, and avoiding essential, non-essential journeys and non-essential shops, etc. Very difficult, I know, in the run-up to Christmas, but until we've all had the vaccination, we're really in a very difficult situation. And I think the problem was the guard slipped once the vaccination was announced. Everybody thought, well, we've got a cure just around the corner. A, it's not a cure, it's a prevention, and we're still all in the job of prevention at the moment. And until, as I say, 70 or 80% of the population have been vaccinated, all the initial measures still obtain, even more so with this new variant strain. Sorry, that's the medical bit in me coming out, but I think it has to be said. So are we happy then to endorse the actions taken and to note the rest of the report? Any to the contrary?
Happy with that.
No, happy to support it, endorse it.
Thank you very much. Then we move on to the next item on the agenda, which is 7.7, which is the committee meeting dates on pages 29 and following. So, Peter.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This time of the year is always the time of the year that we look at committee dates for the forthcoming 18 months or so, and this is no different, apart from the second bit I'll come to. But the proposed calendar is attached as an appendix. There are a couple of things, though, that members need to be aware of. The first relates to the annual town meeting. Your members will recall that we deferred that back to March earlier in the year. It ain't going to happen. If I'm being really blunt, it's not going to happen. The 2020-21 annual town meeting is not going to happen because we're almost up to the 2021-22 one. So if I'm being really honest, I think we forget March altogether. Now that means that the only option we've got for an annual town meeting is to stay within the law, we think, although the law might change and allow us to hold it at a different time of the year. And I don't think anyone's going to hold us to account if we held it in September anyway. But would be on the 20th or 27th of May. The one issue that is sitting there and outstanding on that is that we've got merit awards that we've got nominations on that we're sitting on at the moment, and obviously very soon we'll be going out seeking some more. That in itself isn't a problem, because it just means we'll have a lot of merit awards to hand out. But I'd be interested to see whether members are supportive of just holding on at the moment. The other thing I just flag up with members is PERDA. Because we're hopefully having elections in May, we will have the county council elections, the police and crime commissioner elections, and 2 by-elections here, and also potentially the district as well. So during that period, we will not be meeting unless we have to, and that's been shaded into that calendar. So the PERDA period. So Juliet's done that. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions. The recommendations will go to council.
Any questions from members, please? No, I don't think so. Are we then happy to accept the recommendations on page 29, which are to accept the draft calendar and to approve the date for the proposal of the annual town meeting in May next year after the local elections?
Sorry, Chair, Councillor Blanchard Cooper has indicated he wishes to speak.
Oh yes, I've seen that now. Thank you. Billy Blanchard Cooper, please. Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
Cheers. Sorry, it was less a question, more just a statement to thank the officers for putting all the dates together, because I know what a nightmare it can be to get all of this, especially when it's a year with PERDA involved. So just a note just to say thank you to them, really.
Thank you for that, and I'd join in that as well, of course. I'm sure we all would.
Chair, can I just say that that's Juliet and Emily who've been doing the work on that, and I really should have said that. I think you gave me some praise for the report on COVID. Well, it's nothing to do with me. It's a lot to do with Laura, so I ought to deflect that one as well. So,
okay, I think we're then happy to accept those recommendations, Chairman. Nobody's spoken against.
Did members have a preference for the 20th or the 27th of May next year, assuming it even goes ahead?
Can we just leave that at the moment, Peter? Yeah. Perhaps look at other calendars as well informally and plump for one of those dates.
Okay.
Okay, then we move on to item 7.8, which is the telephone system. Peter.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is, I'm hoping I can make this simple, and by doing so, I'll probably walk into a hole. But our telephone lease is due to expire. It's the cheapest way forward would be to acquire it, to purchase it. The problem is that Panasonic are pulling out of this in the UK, which means that we could be buying some equipment that really won't stand the test of time. So we've looked at the other option, which is to commit to a new lease, and the recommendation is to go ahead with a new lease with LG.
I assume members have noted the report. It's a very short report. Is anybody opposed to this proposed course of action? I hear nobody, so can I formally propose that we procure the new LG handsets from the council's current suppliers, SCS, on a hire purchase basis over 5 years? And I'll take that by general assent unless anybody is opposed to that. Is anybody opposed to that? No, in that case we've approved that one. Thank you very much indeed. We then move on to item 7.9, which is community facilities. And again, it's the town clerk show.
It's a very brief report, Chair. Just to say that the community facilities community working party subcommittee, yes, I'll get the right word, of council met the other week. It has asked for some work to be done because potentially costs are running too high for Keystone, and we will be reporting back to council in January.
Okay, everybody happy to note that? Thank you. Right, that concludes officer reports. We now move on to the crucial business at this time of the year, finance. And we'll start with 8.1, which is the update on our current year's finances. And that's on page 35. And I'm going to ask the town clerk to introduce that.
Yeah, this is in some ways, he says risking it, but this is the simplest of the 4 reports on finance. This is the regular periodic monitor of the budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions on it, Chair.
I mean, the main important thing is we're on track, we're okay. Yeah. And I'd like to thank Laura, of course, for and Claire for producing this. So any questions to Peter? Don't bother to type it. If you want to ask a question, just let me know. No questions. If we're then happy to note the reports, please. Unless I hear anybody to the contrary, I'll take that as general assent.
No, happy to accept it, support it.
We don't have to have a vote on that one, do we, Peter?
No, it's just a note, Chair.
Okay, that's fine. Of course it is. It's a noting report. I do beg your pardon. Okay, we then move on to 8.2, which is the P&F, our own committee draft budget. And I'll ask the town clerk to take us through. This is starting on page 38.
Thank you, Chair. I'm hoping that members have read this and the backdrop to it. We've gone through the normal process that I've explained. Hopefully members have bumped into this as I've explained it at other committees, whereby the internal pressures are noted and accumulated. Group leaders are spoken to, committee chairs and vice chairs are spoken to, and the various committee budgets are pulled together, which are then which are considered by committees, then pulled together and taken to this committee, which we'll get to in a moment. But one of the committees that needs to be considered is obviously this committee's own budget, which is set out in these papers. I'm not proposing to go chugging through this because it is pretty self-explanatory. There's no radical change proposed in there. What we do need to pick up, though, is the decision earlier of the extraordinary council meeting, which means that instead of taking £20,000 from earmarked reserves, £10,000 will need to be picked up. But other than that, Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions whatsoever, with the view that, strangely, you end up recommending this to yourself to discuss again as part of the overall council budget in about 10 minutes' time.
Or 5 minutes if we're lucky. So yeah, I take it the members have read the committee report. It's steady as you go on this committee's budget. There's no change effectively. And are there any questions on it? No, I hear no voices. In that case, can we note the, agree the recommendations on the bottom of page 38 at 2.1, 1 and 2 to comment on, well, to accept the draft committee budget and to note the committee's earmarked reserves position, subject to the amendment that Peter mentioned of the £20,000 being reduced to £10,000. I think do we have to have a vote on that one, Peter?
If you can have general assent.
Okay, general assent I'm happy with, obviously. Is anybody opposed to this, or is everybody happy with it? I hear no voices raised against it, so I assume that is general approval by the committee, for which we're very grateful. And we then move on to, rapidly turning over my pages to page 46, which is the
capital programme.
Right, Peter? Yes.
Yeah.
The capital.
So we have a capital programme, councillors. As you are aware, we've bring this report in recent years to you. We didn't used to get absorbed into the full budget, but it's quite a dramatic, significant capital programme. We're trundling along. This sets it out. There shouldn't be any surprises in here. That doesn't mean that there aren't, so I'm not going to go chugging my way through it. but obviously it's a key part of the overall budget that we'll be considering again in a minute. So happy to answer any questions, Chair.
So these are all projects that clearly have been through the various committees of the council over the last year, capital expenditure and the funding for those, and they are all listed on in the report, and then the earmark reserves are there as an appendix as well. So
once members have had asked their questions, I will come back to the one recommendation that's there, Chair.
Yeah. So are there any questions or observations on this one, please? No. So Peter, if you could come to the recommendation, please.
Yes. So just to clarify and try and this is going to get me. This is going to test me out. To try and explain in layman's terms, and I don't mean that in a patronising way. This is just so I understand it. The recommendation that's there, and this is just basically to use by using the main capital budget, it enables that expenditure to be potentially more useful to you. So that by using the capital expenditure, some more money has been spent on capital, which means that more of the overall capital budget is flexible in use and could be used for revenue. So all with the recommendation does here is try to give the council more. It's still spending the same money, but it gives the council more flexibility as to how it spends its money in the future.
And I can tell you as committee chairman that is always a happier position to be in if you're in the happy position of being able to use a little bit of capital for revenue. So any questions on that to Peter? No, if not, then can I take the committee to the recommendations on the bottom of the page at 2.1, 1 and 2, and that is to approve the draft capital budget and the funding proposals for that, and to recommend the device that Peter's just talked about to meeting the £77,000 funding for the new Keystone Centre from the Capital Receipts Reserve instead of the loan capital. So can I ask the committee, can we do this one by general assent as well, Peter?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. So is there anybody opposed to this, or can I take that as general assent? No, I hear nobody opposing that one, so that's approved unanimously for recommendation to the full council, which brings us finally to the full council draft budget. And as Peter indicated, this is the summation of all the other budgets, including the one we've just approved for this committee. So each committee has its own draft budget. They've all been approved by those committees, and this, frankly, at the end of it is the sum total of those, and it would be very odd and surprising if the Town Council P&F committee didn't approve the various budgets that have come from the committees that are before us tonight. But Peter, can you introduce it, please?
You've summarised it very well, Chair. The one comment that really came out of the whole cycle related to planning and transportation, and it was regard to using the earmarked reserve that was there for community transport initiatives. The reasoning was accepted by the committee, but they wished to put a marker down that should funding be needed in the future for community transport initiative, that the decision to release the funding back into the pot should be remembered, and I'd ask council to be to take cognizance of that. So other than that, the committee's approved, so recommended their budgets pretty much as they were. Obviously there's a change from P&F, as we mentioned earlier. Should members approve that tonight, it will be a recommendation to council in January. If members are unhappy with it, then we've got a whole series of meetings again. We will refer it back to committees in January. That's not a reason not to do it, because we'd love meetings, but So I just thought it's important to understand the way forward. There's no decision in terms of the budget is needed tonight, other than to recommend it onwards.
Indeed. And the simplest way of looking at it, frankly, is to look at Appendix 1 on page 58, where the whole budget is laid out before you, with the purple strip summarising the proposed budget for the forthcoming year. The next two columns are guidance. They're not the budgets, because we cannot pass following year's budgets. They are projections of probable way forwards. So the budget for 21-22 is effectively in the purple column, and I would stress that this results in a 2% uplift for the town council precept, which equates to an uplift of £2.53 per annum for the average Bandy house. So that's £2.53 uplift for the whole year for the council tax from the town council. So are there any questions or comments on that? I don't hear anybody, so in that case, can I put to the committee the recommendations which are on page 53, which we've accepting the draft budget, recommend to the council setting a precept of £1,297,638, and to recommend to the council setting a bandy council tax of 128.84 per annum for the forthcoming year, which is an increase of 2%, which is £2.53 more than the current year, or 48p a week. Peter, I think we should take a formal vote on that, since it's a financial recommendation to the council. The final vote, of course, will be at the January council meeting. So if we could just have a call of votes for those, please. So it's 4 against or abstain.
I was going to say 4 against or abstain. We're taking the recommendations en bloc at this stage, councillors, unless anyone has a problem.
En bloc, Peter, please.
En bloc. So Councillor Blanchard-Cooper.
4.
Councillor Chase.
4.
Councillor Long.
4.
Councillor Tandy.
4.
Councillor Rhodes. 4. I think she may have left. Can't see her. Councillor Rhodes.
I think Councillor Rhodes has left the meeting, Chair.
Okay. Councillor Dr. Walsh.
4.
And Councillor Malloy.
4.
Okay. So that's general assent. Well, it's approved, Chair.
Approved unanimously. Thanks very much indeed for that. That brings us to the end of the meeting, and what I want to say is thank everybody, press, public, and of course, last but not least, fellow councillors. And since this is the last meeting before Christmas, and I hope for many of us, their last meeting of any sort before Christmas, can I wish everybody, staff and fellow councillors, a happiest of Christmas in the sombre circumstances that we have had this year, and let's all hope for a peaceful and healthier 2021. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Happy Christmas, everyone.
Happy Christmas. Stay well, everybody.